Hi, my name is John Kim, and I'm a therapist who went through his own rebirth. I share my feelings and revelations. I believe in casual over clinical and with you instead of at you. I come unrehearsed on purpose because self-help doesn't have to be so complicated. So Buddy and I met on Craigslist, Casual Encounters. I've actually used that joke over 9,000 times. There should be an expiration date on jokes. All my friends would agree. I have like 4 jokes that I just use over and over, and that's my how I met Buddy Wakefield joke. Anyway, Buddy Wakefield and I met at my CrossFit box back in the day, and the CrossFit Mindset in Los Feliz, and I started to run groups because I wanted to help people process their workouts, and that's where I met Buddy, and he started attending these groups. I found out quickly that he's a very authentic guy, but also we spoke the same language. We both speak broken Korean at a 4th grade level. No, we spoke the same language in that we're both seekers and curious and interested in things that we can't see. And so like energy and serendipity and all of that. And so we connected on that, and then we started to run these dinners called Nine, based on random people colliding and people we didn't know and having conversations that we wouldn't normally have out in the quote unquote real world, because these conversations were abstract and different. And so then of course we got busy and started doing other things, but he's still my friend. I still love him to death. He's a very busy guy. He's on tour. He's a world champion spoken word poet, also did an amazing TED Talk, is also an author, an actor, has many gifts. Buddy Wakefield is not just a person, he is an experience. He is an experience, and that's I mean that as a very high compliment. One of my favorite people. Here he is, Buddy Wakefield. I am in studio, and by in studio I mean in my kitchen with 2 $9 microphones and a computer with one of my favorite people, Buddy Wakefield.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
So the concept of this is basically let's just talk like no one's listening, and then hopefully people will listen.
Yeah, okay.
So man, where do you want to start? I like what you just said. Let's start with that, and then we'll Tarantino it. Then we'll put a bookmark there and go backwards. You were just, when I was testing this thing, you were just saying where you were at, right?
Yeah,
So
I was talking.
where are you at? I like what you just said.
I was saying that at 45, you would think I had. I would think that I had set better boundaries. My whole life, I've heard people talk about setting boundaries, and it turns out I didn't set as many as I thought I did. And so I've recently cut the cord on 3 really important people in my life, and within reason, and in a balanced way, because I just realized I am one of the most considerate people I know. I try to see things from 360 degrees. If I have a blind spot, I'm a growth junkie, and I'm open to learn from that. I like people to know that I see that they're having a certain experience I may not be having. I like to validate their viewpoint, and I like to do that honestly. It's just something that comes natural to me, and I've been that way my whole life. And so I've just realized when people don't offer me that same respect, it's not something I expect anymore. But if it's something that is unhealthy and doesn't play to my strengths, and people aren't acknowledging where I'm coming from as well, I no longer have time for that in my life. And I'm just excited to be around people like yourself and other people who have a certain level of awareness and participate in their existence.
I wasn't one of the 3?
And contribute. No.
Okay, good.
No.
Wait, so this is actually a really important topic, because a lot of people, especially people that I've helped in the past, struggle with boundaries and shaking the tree, and especially if they're good friends or if there's history with them, and of course family. How do you cut the cord, quote unquote, for you? Is it really just like that cut and dry, or is it a gradual slow burn?
It's both. The gradual slow. So it begins with myself. I've recently had to cut the cord with myself on certain decisions I've made. There's a sense that I've been living with where I rise from falls that I keep taking in vain just for a reason to stand, because I'm professional at exercising my trauma. I'm a professional at Yeah, helter skelter at navigating the suffering, and I get it. I'm good at it, and so I'm having to cut the cord with myself.
What does that look
feeds
like,
that.
real quick? First, cutting the cord with yourself.
Well, for me, first it looks like I'm 5 weeks sober today.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, tomorrow. I'm 5 weeks sober tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a lifetime of it since I was 14 years old. I've been really mischievous and what I've previously called smart about it, where I've just shifted addictions my entire life, so it never looks like I'm strung out on one thing, whether it's been food or sex or
Buddy throws a wide net.
Yeah, dude. And
wait, do you do that so it's not one specific addiction? Because then that means that there's, you know what I'm saying? So it's not alcohol or it's not this or it's not sex, but it's like everything.
Yeah, and then so it's built up over the years into this just fucking. I'm sorry. Can we cuss on this?
Yeah,
one?
Of course.
Until it's just this party, because I go all or nothing.
Yeah,
and so
but you're very extreme. But also, I think that's one of your gifts. If you haven't noticed already, Buddy is a poet. And I think I think the middle is where it's lukewarm. So you kind of, as an artist, you have to go extreme.
Yeah.
But I think it also ripples into like your personality and
yeah. Well, the thing is, I don't think I've had to go extreme. I think I just have. It's been my natural disposition. I've always been a bit of an intense fella. I'm aware of it now. There's only so many cashiers and people when you're talking to them who kind of lean back and get wide-eyed and stare back at you that are a reflection of how intense you're coming off. So. I get that that's about me and that I've always been all or nothing, and I'm really excited about how aware of it I am now, cutting the cord with the things that perpetuate that and finding a little more balance. And that's why this is the end of the poetry chapter for me and the beginning of the Hollywood chapter, where I get to anchor a little more, write for a wider audience and in a new format like screenwriting, where I actually have to have a lot more balance, a story arc, and I can't just wash over people the way I can with poetry.
When you say you're intense, I agree, but I disagree, because when I think about you, I think about breath and meditation and all the stuff all the work that you've done. And so, yes, you can be intense, but there's also a calmness about you. And then when I saw you earlier today, I told you I saw clarity in your eyes, So you're interesting, because I think when you want to be intense, you can obviously, and falling off the wagon and all that. But overall, you're actually, I think, very calm.
Thank you. There's a couple of thank you. So it's been 15 years of meditation, of practice. About 15. I started in 2005 of a Vipassana meditation course. You know that is the love of my life.
For those who don't know, what is Vipassana?
Dhamma, DHAMMA.org. Vipassana is a Pali word for to see clearly. It's a 10-day, it's basically the boot camp of meditation. It's a 10-day meditation course, 11 hours a day, and there's no idol worship or rites or rituals. It is just the science of breath and sensations and observing them without reacting in order to come out of habit patterns and blind reactions. And they provide a space to do that. If anybody tries to charge you money, you're in the wrong place. Again, that's Dhamma.org. It's just a free technique being offered. Now there's about 250 centers around the world. I've got a TEDx talk on it online on YouTube.
What is the benefits for you would have been through meditation?
Well, what I already said, which is coming out of blind reactions and habit patterns. Also, some of this is with age and some of it's with meditation. There's just things I don't plug into anymore.
Like what? Negativity?
Whatever just doesn't play to my strengths. I don't have a lot of room for silliness. I don't have a lot of room for, I don't want to say small talk, because I really actually enjoy small talk on the right occasions. I do enjoy talk about the weather. There's a certain element of that, though, that I'm not willing to go into. I'm not willing to accept. I have a lot of family and friends in Middle America, in the South, or who are conservative in the city, and I don't have a lot of room for unawareness anymore without calling it out or detaching from it.
Right. So going back to this idea of cutting the cord, is that part of why you cut the cord with these three? Is there a lack of unawareness in that?
There is, and all smart people, all lovely people, but one who, thank you and I'm sorry are the gateway words to vulnerability. Yeah. And so some people won't access that. And so if thank you and I'm sorry aren't part of your vocabulary, I'm not interested in hanging. I'm not interested in progressing, is better said. I'm actually could be totally down to hang.
Oh, right. So
You know?
you mean you're not interested in going deeper? You're not interested in them being,
Yeah, they don't have access to a certain part of me anymore.
Right. They
Which
could
is
text
which
you.
is vulnerable. Yeah,
Right.
you don't get the vulnerable part of me anymore if you can't show up.
Oh, I like that.
And,
I like that, because, I talk about non-negotiables.
Yep.
And so what is emerging is that's one of your non-negotiables.
Yeah.
You're not willing to negotiate that.
And so one of the things, this is a real risk to say on a podcast. You know what? I won't name. It's somebody in my family who actually comes to my shows, and then I did a sold out show at Rockefeller's with Rudy Francisco recently in Houston. We turned the place upside down. I was one of 3 white people on the stage that night out of about 20 who were all participating in some form or another. There was a Muslim gentleman who did an amazing piece just about being Muslim and not being stereotyped. Most of the identity poems that night, it's intense. People come off angry, and there's a reason for the outrage. And people like in my family who are white and a lot of blind spots, they say things like, "Well, I wish they weren't so angry."
Yeah.
And so I hear that, and I've tried to talk with them. Anyways, where I'm going with this is that we turned the place upside down. That night and the next day, my family, somebody in my family that's important to me, never said one word. I can't imagine having a child and seeing them sell out a venue, be a force of good in this world, and not say something to them. That's an expectation on my part, which is why I'm cutting the cord. I no longer have this expectation. But the next day, on top of that, instead of saying anything awesome to me about what went down, they posted some racist meme about Muslims. And so the cord gets cut there. That's an obvious cord for a lot of us at this point. And then the other one is just an ex-partner who we suffered through it we really loved each other, wanted it to work. We didn't play to each other's strengths. I took all the responsibility because I can be a difficult guy. But I was taking all that on my own shoulders, and I wasn't giving him any of the credit for bullshit.
Right.
And it turns out, in the end, financially, mentally, emotionally, I gave everything I had, literally everything I had to make it work. And I showed up all the way. Yeah. And I realized after 9 years of being under a spell, that's what I did. I actually did that, and that's not what I received.
Right.
And there was no thank you or I'm sorry for all that I gave or all that was lost.
So a lopsided relationship.
Yeah, and then a huge part, which is the most important part, I believe, is that I can't have expectations of people who aren't capable of showing up.
We'll be right back after this brief message.
So I have tried many meal delivery services throughout the years because I have no idea how to cook. And I gotta say, Sakara is my favorite. Here's what I love about Sakara. Not only are they organic and nutritious and delicious and plant-based, they are specifically designed to enhance your energy, improve digestion, and help with healthy weight loss. So basically, you're not getting meals, you're getting meal programs. And this is amazing because then you don't have to think about what is in your meals. You don't have to think about the nutrition you want to put in your body. All you have to do is eat. And if you like to eat like me, then that is going to be convenient and worth every penny. I want to give you $60 off your first order, $60 off. Just go to sakara.com, sakara.com/angrytherapist. Go to sakara.com/angrytherapist, get $60 off, and try these guys. They're amazing, they're delicious, and they've gotten rave reviews from Vogue and Goop and the New York Times. So everyone's talking about them. They're not only delicious, but they have a meal program so you can enhance your energy, improve digestion, and of course, live better.
I can say the boundary, I can say what's going on and why I'm separating myself, but I can no longer have expectations of how you're supposed to respond to me. And it shows up in micro ways for me too, where I've had to get over, like, if I hold the door open for somebody and they walk in without saying thank you, I used to go, "You're welcome." I can't do that anymore.
Right.
So that's a thing. Those are tiny little, threads I cut with myself that can't do that anymore. As passive aggressive as a useless hood ornament.
Would you say that most people, because when you say showing up, I'm actually, as you're saying that, thinking about just the people around in my daily life. There's actually very few, depending on your definition of showing up, who actually do show up. There are very few who actually put the shield down or say thank you. What was the other one? Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Or take ownership. Most people are defensive.
Yeah.
And that comes from their story. Most people are walking reactions.
And a need to be right.
100%. But I think most people are like that. And then there are a few nuggets of gold. And then, that's just the way the world is.
That's the joy of life that I'm entering into, where I'm surrounded by richness, whether that's where it's people who are showing up. That's who I'm surrounded by, and that's a sustainable joy in my life. I'm not willing to give that up anymore. I used to be embarrassed about certain privileges or things that I was acquiring because we grew up so poor and struggling for everything. And I thought that it wasn't cool to be rich. I thought it wasn't cool to have balanced, thoughtful friends who weren't just rebellious and fighting and getting fucked up all the time. It was a certain pride, when you don't have anything, but you still have a sense of pride as a human, you take pride in not having anything.
Right.
I'm no longer taking pride in that. What I'm taking pride in is the work that I've done and how I've showed up to build momentum toward that which I know is going to make me and everybody around me, for lack of better words, it's better.
Yeah, I love the reminder you just said that putting weight on how far you've come. That's basically what you said. Putting weight on your character arc, your revelations, the work that you've put in yourself. It's very hard to do that in our world because we put weight on, things, right? The house, the car, the whatever, the relationship. And we rarely think about, wow, I actually did a lot of work on myself, or I've come out the other end. And that's not valuable. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if this, something that's come up for me while you're saying this is that the showing up part. I think a lot of people hear that and do say, what does that look like for you? What does that mean? How do I do that?
Yeah.
It's circumstantial and it depends. And I think a way to find out your answer is to not have a mouthful of answers or to not try and come up with the answer.
So explore.
Investigate it, sure. Yeah. Investigate is a big part of it. And this has been a huge one for me, listening. And I mean listen. And that's not to just people talking. That's to the observer in your head. And when I think there's a voice that'll say, who's the observer? And the observer is the person that just observed you saying, who's the observer?
Right.
It goes like that. And there's a mathematical theory where when you split something in half, you can split it in half forever. And you can do that with that observer thing until you get basically to the source. Now we're getting into metaphysics and enlightenment. But showing up to listen, when I really started getting serious about my meditation and committing full on, the first thing that came to my head and heart when I listened were the words transmute density. Those explain themselves if you know what the word transmute and density mean. But to me, it shows up as a dissolution, as a dissolve of physically and mentally the thickness in my head, the deep groove that I've worn in circles in the rock with the same thoughts of defending myself and how I was right, and sitting in the car having an argument with the cop that didn't pull me over, and like those things. It's astonishing how many of those conversations we have.
I think showing up actually means distance, and what I mean by distance is everything that what you're talking about, the stuff that happens in between our ears.
It's closing the gap.
Well, not allowing yourself to be hooked by that or reacting from that, but actually seeing it almost like through a snow globe, letting it run, not fighting it. But with that distance, then you almost are... I don't know what the word is, neutral, you're pure, you're present.
From the observer. Yeah.
Yes. You're not attached.
It's a detachment. Eckhart Tolle.
Distance.
Yes, Eckhart Tolle talks about finding the space in everything, in sounds, in sight, in feelings, in your thoughts, to observe the space. And he doesn't much elaborate on that in the book. I can't remember if it was in A New Earth or The Power of Now. But he does talk about, I think it was A New Earth, and he talks about observing the space. And that resonated with me to the maximum. But he didn't unpack it, so I had to just listen and watch and observe the space so that it would unpack itself by just following the direction of someone I loved and trusted wholeheartedly. Eckhart Tolle is in alignment with all of my fundamentals and all of my experiences, and I trust him and the talk that he walks, or the walk that he talks, You know what I mean? I just trust him implicitly. So when Eckhart says, find the space in everything, I trust that if I do that, I'm going to be further along the path toward where he's living. Because I've always been living or writing to my ideal self. It's just been taking a long time to fill that man's shoes. And so the example is that, that space that you're speaking of, it was, I know it because I really have experienced observing it. And it's also the thing that's helped me sleep better. When I'm in bed, I'll ask myself, what else can I relax? Even if I think I'm totally relaxed. And it's that theory again, where you split in half and it goes forever, and more and more and more, like cellularly, you can relax more until you're dissolved. So that's the space that I look for. Well,
this is also the byproduct of meditation.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people in meditation, they're not listening. They still have a brain full of answers. Sure. They sit down and they're like, okay, I'm going to control this thing. I'm going to get this story aligned. I'm going to breathe so that I can do this, so I can manipulate the story correctly. My identity, my story. Oh my God. It's my narrative, without even knowing that they're doing it. When the real objective in the original form of meditation, before there were 10,000 books in Barnes & Noble trying to make it something more than it was, which is the science of breath, is to just observe the touch of the breath, incoming, outgoing, no imagination, no mantras, no nothing, just observe breath without reacting, do nothing.
Can you be in a meditative state while doing something active? Meaning, does it have to be the kind of classic example of sitting cross-legged on the floor?
No.
Can you be, so for example, running a marathon, can you be in a meditative state? Can you meditate while making love? Can you meditate while doing butterfly pull-ups? Can you meditate through fitness? You know
so that's where the balance of life comes in. Is I'm learning it. I don't have the.
That's what I.
Yes is the answer, and I'm not entirely sure that I'm good at it yet. What I'm aware of is that we're all on this planet to experience. We've all arrived here to experience form. Now that I've had some time to do that, I'm seeing the balance in when I sit still cross-legged. That's when I can, be, when there's silence, when there's all the things that are necessary for me to get maximum benefit of meditation without distraction. When I've got the actual distraction, that's me experiencing form. And so I'm observing the form and what it's doing to my body, how it relates to my thoughts, what my thoughts, thoughts leads to feeling, lead to action. And these bodies were created out of thought. Billions and billions and billions of sankhara is the word. It's a Pali word. I don't know how to. Yes is the simple answer. Yes, you can be one can be in a meditative state doing these things. Do I think there's distraction? Yes. Is it effective? See, I don't know. For the Buddha, it was. For Eckhart, it seems to be. Right. Not for me yet. I need to be still. But that's also, I've got a vibration that's largely off the charts some days.
Sure. This idea of when your mind, body, soul, kind of the intersection between those three, where you actually where you disappear because whatever you're doing is you're so deep in. So whether it's writing or art or writing,
essencelessness, there's no I. That took me a long time to understand.
That to me is sustainable for people who like I can't sit still for 30 seconds.
I know.
So, but I can. So like I just went into the woods and rode motorcycles with a group of dudes for days. Yeah. And in that state, you literally have an out-of-body experience where you're...
Well, the Earth's going to meet you where you're at. This whole atmosphere is going to meet you where you're at. In fact, I heard one of the coaches at the gym we go to, Emily, say to someone she was training, meet them where they're at.
Yeah, that's all.
And that's what this life does for us. And so if you're not somebody who can sit still cross-legged for 10 days, 11 hours a day. Right. But on your motorcycle, surrounded by people you love, that's what's transmuting the density, the hard stuff, the dense, the thick-headedness. Yes. God damn, that's the most important thing then. That's top priority.
And I mentioned this because, meditation is such a big word now. It's a buzzword in the wellness community.
So many assumptions around it.
Yes, there's apps.
And when you cliche a word, it starts to suck. Everybody makes fun of it. Mindfulness is now sort of a joke. Yes. But it doesn't take away.
Gratitude,
what an amazing concept. And excuse me, the word is fucked. I hope the editor, that was I'm getting old man noises. But gratitude is it's my jam. And I can't stand using the word.
Yeah, because it's a bumper
And that's
sticker
my
or
job
something?
as a poet and spoken word artist is
Yeah.
is innovative, crisp language that still speaks to the bottom of the barrel. Because I think there's people like Eckhart or Deepak Chopra who are speaking their language, gratitude and light and all of this stuff, which is legit. But the people at the bottom of the barrel are hearing it, like, yeah, fuck off. And so that's my job. What I see as my purpose is having experience with that location, frequency in life. Is to speak to that, to leave clear writing on the wall and how to maybe get out of that, or at least point a finger in the right direction. And so far, it seems to be successful. I've been a touring poet for 20 years, making a good living.
Yeah. So let's talk about your career. Let's talk about all of that, your where you're going, your true north, what you're building.
Yeah.
But I want to put a bookmark here.
Okay.
And I want to start with something that I read. I think you posted on Instagram. It made me laugh out loud. It was something about in high school, someone grabbed you and said
in
that
seventh grade.
Seventh grade, someone grabbed you and said they want lunch money from you for the rest of the year, and you said it gave you a boner. Yeah. And it's when I read that, I was like, that is exact. Like it captured who you were, right? There was so much truth, but also it was really funny.
Well, this is a true story.
I
Jimmy
kind of thought
Moore,
it was
in
too,
the
yeah.
seventh grade, Jimmy Moore shoved me up against a wall, held his arm across my throat, and told me if I didn't give him 50 cents a day for the rest of the school year, he would beat me up. I got a boner, and at least once a week, I would miss payment on purpose, but Jimmy never beat me up.
So
His integrity and business sense as a bully were awful.
I love this for many reasons. One, I love the courage that you had to post that, right?
Yeah.
I just love the honesty, the just truth, man.
Yeah.
It takes courage to go there. And two, of course, humor. Three, it makes you know what's interesting about that is it there's like an emotional rainbow. One, it makes me laugh. Then it kind of makes me sad because I care about you and I know growing up someone bullies you or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the boner part is almost like you won. It's almost like you took the power back.
That's so the new book unpacks why.
What is your new book called?
A Choir of Honest Killers. By the way, I used to. Jimmy stopped talking to me because I annoyed him so badly because I would chase him down to give him my 50 cents. I was so sad about it. This is really it.
That's really flipping the script. That's emotional Aikido. Is when someone bullies you and you're like,
but I didn't even know I was doing it. Now
you liked it.
Now I have this. Well, I'm excited about a script that I'm in the process of writing that I am really excited about that really flips the script like this and answers the question, to what advantage would a person put themselves at the bottom of the food chain or destroy themselves? Because the whole object of our ego is to protect ourselves, supposedly. And so what would acquiescing or being a masochist or what would that do to work to one's advantage, and why would a person put themselves there? And so one of the first pieces in the book, it's called Strawberry, absolutely unpacks that, and it goes right into my attraction to Ramzan Kadyrov, who is the president of Chechnya and systematically kills gay people. Like, these are fucked up things,
right.
To the current narrative, but the truth is it's honest for me, and people have to be able to talk about shit like this if they really want to do the needlework on systemic stuff. Sure. And I know when I was a kid, God bless Boy George and George Michael and everyone who was gay when I was growing up. Not that George was out, but who didn't know?
I didn't know.
I just thought that I just had nobody to relate to, and I was thinking Trent Reznor was my hero. Like I needed somebody who was speaking my language. Sure. And pull me back.
You grew up in Texas.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so the reason why I wanted to put a bookmark there is that quote takes us to high school, middle school, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to be non-linear. This is why I mentioned Quentin Tarantino.
Good, because I lost my spot.
Yeah, so now So I want to talk about your upbringing briefly.
Okay.
And then we're gonna circle back to the what you're up to now. So
Okay.
upbringing, Texas, what that was like, and how it's kind of like your evolution to becoming Buddy Wakefield.
What I miss and love about Texas is I really enjoy polite people. I think there's the tough people will hit on polite people.
Wait, is it surface polite or is it true polite? A genuine?
I think it's a deep polite that started at the surface.
It's a difference between nice and kind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think it's people who faked it till they made it. I've never loved the term "fake it till you make it,"
No, I hate
but I
that
think
term.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
I think people faked politeness, and then all of a sudden, in evolution, it's now the norm in the South. But where that came from, and I'll just speak to the location that I was at, which is Baytown, Texas, about 20 minutes east of Houston. We lived it's Exxon, Mobil, Shell, BP, Chevron, NASA, Halliburton. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
It's one big refinery for as far as the eye can see, just smokestacks and fire and metal and smell, disgusting smells. And then you put on top of that the heat and the humidity, the sweltering humidity and heat. And then you put on top of that the racial history and the racism. What other choice do people have to survive than to be polite?
It's a pressure cooker, Texas.
Fucking hell it is. And then you put a fat, poor, awkward walking gay kid in the middle of that.
Yeah.
There was not a day that went by where I wasn't made fun of. Now, I wasn't out of the closet, but everybody, like Boy George or George Michael, knew that everybody knew that I was way before I wanted them to, and would constantly remind me that they knew, even though I denied it. Somewhere in the 9th grade, I moved to California briefly, and I got a scholarship to Kids on Camera while we were out here.
What is Kids on Camera?
It was just an acting on camera school. And this was in San Francisco, and I got a scholarship there. And at the end of it, they picked 3 students, and they showed us our videos. And I saw myself on video, and I went, "Oh,
good or bad?
No, oh fuck, that's how everybody knows I'm gay. I am fucking gay." And so the overcompensation began immediately. I started correcting the way I walked. That's why I walk so stiff now. It's my hips are screwed. That I was, when one believes in a God, when God is God, God has the final say.
Sure.
And if the people if your heroes who are giving you information let you know that God sends gay people to hell, then it's nothing but a negotiation from there on out with God of how can I not be gay?
Right.
To the point that in college, I was the president of the Christian Cowboys Friends and Fellowship Rodeo Association, riding bulls for Jesus, which is about the gayest thing anybody can do.
Or it's a great beard. I don't know.
So the overcompensation began the whole way. There was a terror. The whole way. I was also drawn to the misfits. Luckily, in my town, the misfits were really forward-thinking and not entirely, just punk rock to be punk rock and image, with all of the adornments and stuff. These were actual, like I took acid before I ever drank a beer, and we actually explored ourselves. We actually, now I didn't. That said, I didn't have. Not the kind of sex I wanted to till I was 19. When I say explored ourselves, it was a mental unfolding and an investigation, and we were all really cerebral. Mm-hmm. We all really loved lyrical music that took us away, landed us in a safe space. And back to cliches, we were definitely Pink Floyd. We were definitely Nine Inch Nails. Yeah. We were, not that Trent landed people necessarily in a safe space, because he was pissed. But yeah, man. So growing up there, I was luckily, my friends were, they knew I was never the kind of guy to let people know or advance on anybody. I just kept a good space with all of them. I had really cool friends. I've always been lucky enough to surround myself with cool people. I've always been Buddy, which has been a really gift of a name. Mm-hmm. And so despite the terror and the self-preservation and the angst that was constantly compounding, anger, by the way, is just one big compounded ball of sadnesses. And then that anger, when it gets to become a big compounded ball of angers, it becomes hate. And this is the metaphysics I was talking about earlier when I referred to sankaras. And there's billions and billions over lifetimes. And I know whatever people are going to believe different things, but energetically over lifetimes, these sankaras have built up into these human forms who are the masters of limitation and really good at suffering without even having to work for it. And there's a reason for that. And so it's just physiological. It's not personal. And all we're here to do is to experience this form and to not react to the suffering and to dissolve that, to transmute density. at least the way I see it. And so what I think I'm doing with my work is really starting off in that dense place, really laying it all on the table, and in a way that I think most people are scared to, like talking about getting a boner over a bully, or and then even rougher. There's some. I'm really proud of myself and what I laid out in that book.
Yeah.
In this book, in fact, someone recently asked me what my highest. Well, let me finish the thought. Is first. That's what my work is. To start in that density and to show how I transmuted it, in case there's another kid like me who did feel alone.
Sure.
To know, I want to acknowledge that kids now are far more evolved than I was, and far more in touch with options, and certain awarenesses that I don't think were available to us information-wise.
It was a different time too. I mean, you're around my age. I grew up with. Right before Jerry Lewis was taping his eyes back, and even the John Hughes movies with which I'm such a big fan of, but with Long Duck Dong, and there were no cool Asian kids. I mean, Asians didn't become cool until the Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of getting in there.
Yeah,
so,
how racist was Long Duck Dong?
Yeah, so I grew up wanting to be white, and so what happened was, in order to be white, because I couldn't change my skin color.
Yeah.
It would have to be through some kind of activity. Mm-hmm. So breakdancing was a ticket into the cool kids club,
which the white people co-opted from black people.
Right, exactly. Hispanic Michael, but the Christian Soy board I got into skating to fit into with the surfers. I was never a jock, but I always had some kind of ability, and that ability was a ticket into the quad.
Yep.
So yeah, I grew up. I get it.
I just had this conversation this week with a friend that I literally, there were moments, because it was suicidal. All this is lighthearted now because it turns out it was never personal and nobody gave a shit that I was gay, except my mom, who I had to come out to twice. Yeah. But I wanted to be retarded. I wanted to be retarded so that I didn't have to know, so that I didn't have to feel so much, so I didn't have to know I was gay, so that God couldn't hate me because I didn't know any better. And then I used to invent ways for it to be an accident. Like I would literally sit around and I could dig out a hole, put a bunch of snakes in it, and step in, and no one would ever know I killed myself.
How old were you?
This is in high school.
Yeah.
And I was deep into Jesus at this point.
Sure.
Like I'd been baptized Episcopalian, juggled Southern Baptist and Nazarene growing up, Pentecostal church camps, and Christian Student Union in high school, and then Christian Cowboys in college.
How did you find poetry? Wait, real quick. When you were talking before about anger, I saw a half circle that went from hurt to anger to hate, and I saw like a little bit of a pattern and progression in people. When did your love for words appear? Was it that young? Is it around that time? Were you journaling? What were you doing where you felt called to start the road of becoming a poet?
The truth is,
do you like writer or poet? What do you like? Do you like poet or no?
I prefer writer.
Okay, a writer.
Poet's just it's just my internalized homosexuality or homophobia. Sorry, my internalized homophobia is because there was no thing I did in this life that wasn't make funnable. So it's gay, poet. Come on, that's easy. Right. So I have over 20 years. I say I'm a writer, but I avoid like the plague. I'm a spoken word artist. I'm a performance poet. I'm a poet. Now I'm a poet. I've been a poet for 20 years. I'm making a living as a poet.
Yeah, you're embracing it now.
Might as well.
Full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think I don't give a shit. Kind of job title fluid, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. So when did you fall in love with words and stuff?
So in the 7th grade, I remember writing in the 7th grade. And I was obsessed with lists first. I was obsessed with WWF wrestling. And what I would do is write down a list. It would take like 5 or 6 pages of every wrestler I could name. And then I would make brackets, and I also collected every action figure, whether it was X-Men, He-Man, Justice League, wrestlers, and then my mom's second husband built me. There were many. We moved around a lot. Not just mom, but dad.
Yeah.
There were 8 by the time I was in 9th grade.
Wow.
They were each other's first. By the time I was in 9th grade, there were 8 marriages. Technically 7, but mom's third one was the worst, so I count him. But one of them had made me this wrestling ring. Sorry, that was a tangent.
A wrestling ring?
A wrestling ring. Out of, like, they had started selling these.
For your action figures, not for
the action figures, yeah. and with bungee cords and
Yeah.
anyway,
Awesome.
so I would write out these 5-page lists, and then I would put brackets, and I would wrestle each match, and I didn't know who was going to win. That was part of the fun for me. Like I would just dive in. I didn't know the story. I was just creating it, and so I loved doing that. And then I would, once that bracket was finished, I would take it from 500 down to 250, and I would literally, this would take me days to go through this whole battle royal, and it excited me. And so I don't know if it was the penmanship itself that was like thoughts lead to feeling lead to actions, or sadness to anger to hate. Like maybe the writing the list led it all to writing a poem, or writing a story, then writing a poem, until I just was doing it, and it was always there. And I've always been writing. The thing about my writing is that it was always cathartic in a way that it actually provided a solution, and a solution I may or may not have been living at the time, but I knew it was the solution. So what I'm saying is that I wrote to my ideal self the entire time, whether I verbalized that or actually was conscious of it or not. I've been channeling this guy, this being who has been writing to his ideal self the whole time. If you go back to my work as far as when I'm 19, 20, 21, it's still got just as much heart, and it's still got just as much heart and want and motivation to arrive in a safe place, into a smart place, into a wholesome place. And but that's not where I was living or how I was living. And even in recent days, there's times that's arguable. But I have learned to fill that guy's shoes better. And so that's what I've been writing the whole time. And as metaphysically I become more and more aware, and more information is passed on to me or serendipitously occurs, then it's affirmed that it was a channel the whole time for me.
When did you know that your writing was good? Did you go to college or no? Was it just
I did. I graduated. It's from Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas.
When did you know that you had a gift?
Oof, that's funny. It makes me cringe that you said you had a gift. That's one of those things I'm going to accept.
Have, not that it's gone.
Yeah. So I knew I was onto something. I had the audacity my narcissism propelled me into the audacity to think my shit was important, which I think is most writers out there.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is that I was an obsessive editor. So I had a rhythm about me, and I also had these little rules, these obsessive rules, like I don't want to repeat words twice. And I mean even the tiny words like to, of, and, if.
I do that too, yeah.
And I can literally, I have a piece called Horsehead that it took me 3 months to write, a 9-to-5 job, and it's 4 minutes long. And so that was the thing that separated me from other writers, understanding my rhythm, understanding my editing, understanding the ability to flip a cliche and to not bring mindfulness. I won't use the word mindfulness in my writing, or soul.
Oh, right, like words that are commercial.
Soul or reality. I have a rule about, in later years, I've had a rule about not starting any poem with I or me or my, you know what I mean? So that's what separated me the whole way. And to go back to answer the question is because of those things, one thing leading to another, and the butterfly effect of being successful in writing is that I knew I was having an effect on people. I also knew I was unusually vulnerable, more so than the people around me, and that people were getting something out of it, especially people who were avoidant and not vulnerable at all.
Yeah, because
we're getting a lot out of what I was saying.
They see that in you, and that's something that they,
and that's
they
the stuff
want.
in avoidant people that is tucked the farthest back.
Sure.
And so there were. I'm always so flattered, like when military folk come up and say, dude, you have no idea.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I do.
Right.
I do. We all do.
Right.
And we all do. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
There's no us and them. This wall thing, this country, it's Muslim and Christian. We are all in this together, in this collective consciousness, these agreements. We all make these agreements together, this narrative, this story. And that's part of the cutting of the cord and the people I surround myself with is, we are perpetuating a new agreement and a new story that doesn't hurt. And I think there's so many people that will say, well, that sounds all fine and dandy, quite an idealist. And those people I just cut off right there.
Yeah.
Because that means they are not even trying to be where we could be, which is here.
Mm-hmm. I want to start a new brush stroke. I love the art of conversation, and I see it almost visually as kind of like a painting that we're creating. And this is definitely not color by numbers, which I love about you. The word serendipity.
Yeah, you know, it's my superpower.
Well, I want to start. So I'm going to brush that serendipity, and then what does that mean to you? And why is that word important to you?
Serendipity is fundamental to the infrastructure of consciousness. It just exists. It's available in every moment. Miracles are not miracles. They are constant recurring reminders of how much we have not been paying attention. Serendipity, it grows the more present we become, the more aware and observant and listening we become. Every time I flake on myself, and I just, I'm 5 weeks sober now, but when if I go off and drink for days, if I just disconnect and detach, there's sort of a muted version of me living around. The moment I become present and healthy and living in the direction I actually prefer to live, to my highest excitement, serendipity kicks right back in and just says, hey, I'm still here, man. This is part of the consciousness. This is the next level of consciousness for you humans. This is it. This is where it's always here. You're connected. You're like cell phones. You can call each other anytime, psychically, physically. Like, we've given you all capabilities. It's an infinite resource, this universe. And serendipity is the permission for all that.
I love that you said you're living to your highest excitement. I made a little note there because usually it's what people say is your highest potential, and I think that word can be loaded. But when you said highest excitement, that got me excited.
Yeah, I learned it from a guy named Paul Anka, Daryl Anka, Paul Anka's nephew, claims to channel a collective oversoul. I shouldn't laugh because it's super valid. So I stole it from him. It's live to your highest excitement with zero expectations of the outcome. And I mean zero expectations of the outcome, which is also why the success in writing, because I never expected anything. I was just doing it because I loved it.
But that's when shit plays out.
Yeah.
When expectation is what blocks the stars from lighting up.
Yep, zero expectations of the outcome. I was just doing it because I loved it. That led me, the moment I diverted from it in a severe way, that led to devastation, which devastation is its own useful tool, because that helped me commit to the path that I really wanted. And once I committed, boy, the presence was unstoppable. That led to bliss, which I thought was just something, but is actually a bigger word than yes. It's like this vast epic experience that, it's experiential. It sounds like, people sitting around just chatting it up, bliss, but it's an experiential gift. It's not paint by numbers, is it? I keep losing where I'm at.
That's okay. There's a blow. What is it called? What's going on outside right now?
There is a blower.
There's a blower. There's someone blowing outside.
And he's getting down too. He's been blowing in one spot for a while.
And I'm trying to put that under the umbrella of serendipity and accepting it instead of because then there's another part of me that's like, should we stop? Should we? And it's like, no, man, just roll with it. I like it. That's the whole point of this. So, when did you come to Los Angeles? And then I want to start talking about.
Do you know what? Can I say something about that blower?
Yeah, of course.
Because my thoughts. Let's hope I arrive at the exciting place I think I'm going to. I was doing another interview actually in my apartment, and I have a hummingbird feeder, and there's like 7 or 8 hummingbirds who live there. Like I have hummingbirds outside my window all day long until sundown. And he was doing this interview, and I said, "Hey, there's the hummingbirds," and he goes, "Wow, what do you think that means?" And I said, they're hungry. They're just hungry, dude.
Yeah.
And so, I think something in the new book, there's a piece called The Momentum. And it says, my father threw a glass with nails in it. And before it hit the ground, he reached enlightenment. So my father, it's saying basically, my father being the collective consciousness. The context is better explained in there, but my father threw a glass with nails in it. Before it reached the ground, he hit enlightenment. So there's this there's enlightenment. It's happening. It's happened for him. But before he reached it, he did throw a glass with nails. That's part of his experience, and that crashed on the ground. And that caused the guy that came along to get a flat tire, and that caused him to miss the birth of his baby, and his wife was pissed because that was the last straw, and she kicked him out, and all these things happened because my father threw a glass with nails in it. And there are things in momentum that are happening that are out of our control, that are not personal, that actually have nothing to do with us directly. And there's a guy outside with a blower right now, really fucking with this interview because he's just blowing in one spot. But he
hasn't left.
He needs to get every leaf out of that crevice, man. He's into it. So whatever reason he's got going on, his editing process for blowing a corner out, man, it's just happening.
You know, and here's the exercises to actually embrace and accept.
But it doesn't mean there's not enlightenment surrounding all of this or within all of this, is my point. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, to actually just accept that as music.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I could. I'm so auditory.
All right, let's talk about you in Los Angeles. Let's talk about what's new, what you're doing now. I know you've been on tour and you're going back on tour. And that's why I wanted to catch you today before you left. We also had a great workout. Also, Buddy and I, we did this for a while. Speaking of serendipity, we hung a dinner and invited 9 strangers, called it 9, and it was
every month new people.
Every month new people, and I loved this. It was so cool. It was basically from your Uber driver to your friend to a celebrity, whoever, and we did a little potluck and we had conversations that you normally wouldn't.
We normalized conversation on everything from serendipity to aliens, the Akashic records, just and it wasn't just the choir. It was fellas from the gym.
It was
everybody across the spectrum.
I love picking people where I knew there was going to be resistance. But not where they're throwing chairs and shit.
How surprising was it that everybody was on board? I mean, there were a couple that seemed hesitant.
Yes.
But do you remember Alex Gould was at the first one? That's Nemo, by the way. We found him. he came to our first 9, and there was a point. There was a woman whose profession is in the Akashic records, and she was referring to information she was getting from the ether as masters, teachers, and loved ones. And my whole body was cringing, like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. I wish you wouldn't call, whatever messages you're getting, masters, teachers, and loved ones. It sounds like the Golden Child movie. It's just so humorous to me. I would make fun of this if I was a kid. But the fact is, I believe her. I believe in her. I just didn't want her to use that language.
Right.
And so I stopped and checked in with everybody. I don't know if you remember this. And Alex Gould said, I was like, how's everybody doing? And Alex said, I'm actually pretty good. I just am wondering if everybody else is okay. And it turns out everybody was feeling that. Like everybody said, I'm okay. I just want to know if everybody else is.
Yeah, everyone's taking care of other people.
Yeah.
Which is sweet.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So, the 9 was an incredible experience. I was really thankful to have that. But I got to tell you, can I jump tracks for a second?
Yes.
I got goosebumps up my back the moment. Your first example was the Uber driver.
Yes.
So I'm 5 weeks sober. 5 weeks tomorrow. And I'm all or nothing. So sobriety for me isn't just about alcohol. Like we're going,
everything.
Like it's
across
full,
the board.
It's the full. Yeah, there's nothing that was off limits.
Yeah, which is why you wouldn't have sugar when we started this, and he wanted to know everything that was in the food that I offered.
Yeah, I'm just giving my body a chance to detox. And on the second day of coming down, which is a really emotional experience for anybody, it's suicidal worthlessness, and maybe not because nobody wants to feel that way. The chemistry in the body is one big muck and mire. And on day 2, I was coming down with a friend of mine who had made the mistake of going in with me for 9 weeks on a bender. This is, by the way, it's worth saying that this is my first time. This is the first time in my life since I was 14 started where I've committed, where I've actually said out loud, I don't want to do this anymore. So that's why 5 weeks feels really important to me after all these years. Like I've gone sober a lot in my life, a year at a time.
That's what's
I don't want in a year to start. Like I'm happy to be done. I just went to a place this summer that I don't remember to uncover all of this. It's metaphysical again for me, and it's an addiction to sensations. Anyway, on the second day of coming down, I was going to a buddy's house who was coming down with me because we just wanted to support each other and make sure we showed up. And as much as we wanted to lay in bed for a month and not move, we just stayed active and held each other to that, and it was really helpful. Man, it was helpful. I know most people come down alone because it can be so, frankly, embarrassing or exhausting. I got into the Uber on the second day, and also something about coming down, then I'll finish the story, is that it is emotional. there's no time when I would open my mouth in the first week or two when I wasn't crying. I found some Junior Mints in my freezer. Were more tears of joy. Those were more tears of joy. But you get like, there was nothing I wasn't
ring
crying.
in the fry bag, you find at the bottom.
The ingredients. There's so much protein.
Yeah.
No, man. But I get into this Uber and it's day 2. Like this is straight in the center of suicide and worthlessness. And I get in, and I'm just hoping to make it without sweats or tripping in any regard to across town to West Hollywood from Los Feliz. And I get into the Uber, and a woman turns around, and she's staring right at me. And she was so familiar when I looked up. You have to keep in mind I was still out of my head a little bit. And I'm staring at her stare at me, and it was Camille from one of the last 9s we did.
Oh, shit.
She was my Uber driver, and she looked at me and she said, oh, this might make me cry right now. She said, I wasn't...
Cry, let it out, man.
I wasn't gonna pick you up because I didn't want you to know I was still an Uber driver.
Oh, man.
And here I am, tweaked out of my mind from 9 weeks of drugs.
Oh, jeez.
And
wait, because when she saw she saw your name pop up.
When she saw my mom,
like,
my name pop up, she
right.
said, I wasn't going to pick you up because I didn't want you to know I was still an Uber driver. Yeah. As if that's fucking anything to be shameful about. Sure. Especially where I come from. And so I looked at her and I said, okay, then, I don't know what I said, frankly. I can try and quote myself. The gist of it was, yeah, I'm 9 weeks tweaked out. I'm 2 days sober. Yeah. And and then we unpacked everything on that ride. We're having lunch next week on Friday. Nice. She's written a graphic novel. She's trying to get out there. I'm just excited to be friends with her. She was such a great guest at that dinner. I think we had a Lyft driver, an Uber driver, me, you, and there was 5 other people. I can't remember who was at that one. But it was. I think it was funny because for a while we were calling it the infrastructure of consciousness potluck, which is so intense and relaxing at the same time.
I love how when someone says something like that requires courage and a lot of transparency, it produces instant glue. Because she could have also picked you up and be like, do I know you? Like she could have done that shit. Mm-hmm. And then instantly the magnets are flipped. Mm-hmm. But by her saying, her admitting that I'm embarrassed of what you would think of me. Yeah. Now you're humanizing yourself, and now we have 2 humans, which creates the space or soil for these conversations. If not, it's all surface. It's the non-negotiable like we were talking about, right? And so, that's why you guys
people have to be able to meet at a certain level, and that was our guests at 9. While they were from all walks of life, we still expected them to already meet us halfway.
Well, once they enter, when they leave, they can be who they want. Yeah, right. They can
so we knew inviting them into that they were going to meet us halfway. So I knew she was a smart woman. I was just so glad to see. I love it when people live up to my memory of them as good people, or when it's a good movie in 1993 and I see it again now, it still holds up. Right. I like that about people too. I love it when people hold up.
Yeah, I actually say that a lot. I say that one of the most the greatest compliments that you could have is that you actually hold up. The consistency part, right?
I've not always done that.
No,
I've been on a perpetual tour for 20 years, and I've done over 2,000 shows. When I show up to a venue, though, it's their only night with Buddy, and so it's pizza, beer, and the same goddamn questions. What inspires you? Can I pick your brain? Yeah. How's the tour, which is its own broad avalanche of a question, and I have so many times not been patient. I have so many times been sad about not being home or at odds with my partner or sick in the middle of winter and driving myself everywhere. I don't have a team of people who've helped me. I've done it all myself. There's no other manager or agent or guy at the computer or intern. I book it. I do the routing. The hotels, I am on stage, I'm dealing with the organizers. Sometimes I've done it under a different name so they didn't know they were dealing with me and I could just be whoever I wanted, but it's all been me. And so that's fucking exhausting. On top of driving 2 to 6 hours a day, on top of trying to get a workout in, on top of trying to eat right. It's like in middle America, trying to eat right is fucking hard.
It's like being a garage band and touring and funding yourself, all that kind of shit.
Yeah, so I'll show up exhausted with myself, with the day, with the elements, and there's this cheery woman on the other end of this boy who's been a fan of my work forever and meets me and is like, oh, wow.
You don't hold up.
You don't hold up.
Right.
And I paid the price for that. I paid the price for that many times along the way.
Sure.
And it's saddened me. It's also created an awareness in me that's still got me. I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I'm still going, and I still hold up in terms of writing and my trajectory and what I'm about, even though that guy's not always been present.
So what's next for you? What are you working on?
So I've got my highest excitement of the contents of this new book.
Mm-hmm.
It's A Choir of Honest Killers. It's my first book of new work in 8 years.
Where can we find it?
WriteBloody.com, any indie bookstore, Amazon is a last resort.
Mm-hmm. Your website?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet.
I agreed for 6 months I wouldn't, because we've done that with every other book I've put out, and it really takes their sales up because the fans just prefer supporting the artist.
Sure.
Which is fantastic, but I agree with them this time. They could build momentum the other way.
Right.
Excuse me. So
and the book is a collection of.
So it's half prose, half poetry. It's there was a moment of devastation on December 28th, 2013, where I left who I thought was the love of my life, our home, our animals, our landscaping company. 45 minutes later, I was in an Airbnb basement. I opened up Facebook. An article had been released because DiFranco and I agreed to do workshops in one of the largest former slave plantations in America. What we didn't know is that we had agreed to do workshops at one of the largest former slave plantations in America, but all the articles had already been released, making us look like we knew all the details and were just these inconsiderate racists. And but the truth is, my reaction, because I was so grieving so much, well, fuck the excuse. My reaction was less than graceful. And when I threw out my middle fingers and basically told everybody to stand down, what it looked like was telling people of color to fuck off. And so CNN's Raw story called the next morning. Seattle Stranger republished it in their paper word for word, and Berkeley called and canceled. Washington called and University of Washington. So and then 3 days. So basically, I've lost my home, my love, my community as I'm going into a world tour where I need my livelihood. In 3 days, and so I've got 2.5 weeks to finish booking this. Buy a van. Make all this happen myself while I'm at the worst grieving place in my life, and I find out 3 days later that I'm HIV positive. And the meds then weren't as polished as they are right now. So they were pretty good, but I had to take this drug called Atripla. And Atripla, they tell you that you might feel like you have to take it before bed. If it hits you while you're awake, you might feel like Superman. And they tell you that so that you feel great.
Right.
What they're not telling you is that maybe not Superman, maybe the devil. Maybe it's going to be a hallucinogen like all the other powerful hallucinogens you took. We're just going to set you off on the right path with this power of suggestion.
Right.
Thank God I had experience with hallucinogens, because for 2 weeks into this devastation, I was... Anyway, I'm reliving all this, and I think we get the point. It was devastating. The book starts there. Well, it starts with unpacking the sexuality, childhood, who I was, what I was about, and the trajectory I'd set myself on. It talks. There's a poem about my family, which has been turned into a short film called Farmly, which won the USA Film Festival.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
and
that.
the Texas Award. It's won 3 good ones now, and so that's the beginning. And on page 28 is when the devastation starts, and from the devastation, it moves through it, and it's dense, and it gets it all out. And it points the finger in the right direction, and then we get to the right direction. And so it's prose that informs the poetry.
Nice.
And I'm really excited about the work, the contents. I think it's the best thing I've ever put out. I'm genuinely stoked for my LA show here.
Yeah.
It's a world tour, BuddyWakefield.com. You can get tickets. Right now, it's just sort of Ohio West. Everything on that line west, and then I'll start East Coast in March, and the rest of the world follows.
LA in December.
But LA is December 15th.
Yep.
And I'm most excited about that show for a couple of reasons. One, I've been in LA for 4 years, and I've not done a big show here. I've done shows everywhere else, but I've just not made one happen here because I've kind of wanted to make it count.
Yeah.
And this new book counts. And to get to the show, I'll be finishing a 2-month run on the road and coming down from the Bay Area. In the Bay are 4 of my, I don't really have a best friend there, but I have about 7 people in my life who are 100% because you can't get better than that.
Sure.
So 4 of my 100%ers and I are getting in a van and we're trucking. We're going to stop and have a picnic in Big Sur, and we're going to take a couple days and just be with each other and end up at my show.
That's the runway, huh?
Yeah.
What am I, about 75%?
John, what are you?
Because I'm going to be there.
What are you? 92%.
Damn, 92.
Yeah. 92.
That's nice.
We'll talk about that 8% too.
Yeah, we will. We'll talk about that. Where can we find you? Where are you on Instagram?
Everything, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are all /Buddy Wakefield or at Buddy Wakefield.
And guys, check out his TED Talk. He has an amazing TED Talk. And I remember when I first met him, I checked that out. Is it called Breathe? I know it's about breath.
It's called Free Air. It's actually, this is so funny. And you know what? This may be a qualification. So be it. I am actually really embarrassed of that presentation because I felt like I was such a poor representation of air. I was in a bad place with my partner. I wasn't breathing while I was talking about breathing.
No, it was great. And let me tell you, it was great. And also,
just let me say also, when you see it, there's an entire visual presentation going on above me that's not in the YouTube. Right. So there's a point when I start breakdancing that's supposed to be really funny, and you can't see, and breakdancing poorly, but you can't see what's above me.
You, right.
So it just looks ridiculous.
Right. I didn't know that, and it all played well to me.
Okay.
I was also kind of embarrassed because I did a TED Talk, but I didn't have the red circle, and I judged myself because I didn't have the red circle because it was a TEDx Saloon.
Yeah.
And yours is a TEDx?
No, mine was TEDx.
Or yours, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mine, so there's TEDx, which gets the red circle. The TEDx Saloon at UCLA doesn't get the red circle. It's like a little bit. It's kind of like the.
It's like a basic economy.
It's like a knockoff. So it's like I was like, fuck, because I got the TED Talk. It's technically a TED Talk, but I didn't get the red circle. When I got there, I was like, oh, this is like wearing fake Levi's, you know? And
you guys didn't get the extra leg room.
And I fucking beat myself up. And then I saw yours. I was like, oh, you got the red circle. That's a legit TED Talk.
You know what the legit TED Talk is just where TED started. But, even that has become its own cliche. The best TED Talk to watch, frankly, is Sarah Silverman's. You just Google band TED Talk Sarah Silverman.
Yeah. No, all of them are great. Well, thanks for hanging out in my kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about your new trajectory. I'm excited about this, starting tomorrow, 6 weeks of sobriety or 5?
It's 5 weeks tomorrow, 5 weeks tomorrow. And I'm excited to check in next year and be able to say the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll see, one day at a time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, buddy. Thank you for hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
All right, be well.